My name is Dangerel Almaden, and you can call me DJ. That's my nickname. And I'm still actually a computer engineering student back in Cebu. But on the sideline, I'm working at tech companies as a web developer. But as you can see, I'm just here laying on the couch, scrolling through YouTube, and then I've encountered this video called, I don't know the exact title, but it says Rust Programming Language Blazingly Fast. Okay, blazingly fast. I was curious, so of course, I clicked the video and then I watched it. And then that started a rabbit hole. So I've grabbed the Rust book. You can actually search it on Google. They have a very good documentation on Rust. It's very comprehensive. It's very easy to understand. I myself, I haven't finished it, pero because of it, I've been able to create software on web, both in front end and back end actually. So I've discovered that Rust isn't only a very common language, no, like PHP and JavaScript, no. So over the past years, I've been working with PHP, JavaScript, frameworks like WordPress, Nest.js, front end Next.js, and React. Who here already has experience creating like a very simple web API or like front end lang? Okay, front end, 'di ba? One thing that really annoys you is the runtime errors, 'di ba? Yeah, you can see all the time when you run your server, it's gonna say undefined, undefined. What the hell is undefined, 'di ba? So, when I discovered Rust, it actually solves that problem. It doesn't introduce runtime errors, which gives the errors at runtime. That's really bad because the clients or at production, they're gonna see the error and then they're gonna complain to you, diba? What's happening here? Like, what are you doing, diba? So, it's very important na it's very important for me to learn Rust as well as a developer because it taught me how to program efficiently and memory safe. I myself, I'm self-taught and I really don't know much about the low-level languages aside from the schools and C and C++. So learning Rust was really hard for me because it has a very steep learning curve, diba? It's very common. The phrase is very common. Very steep learning curve. Well, what does that mean? It means it's kind of a different concept from your normal programming languages like Python, JavaScript. They're very straightforward, diba? And as Sir Christian said, na Rust, the adjective he said is your hot-headed buddy. What does that mean? What does it mean for us to be your hot-headed buddy? Diba? I think someone over there said that it keeps on complaining. So that's a very common experience when developing in Rust. The Rust compiler complains, 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 and complains. That's why when you develop with it, it's gonna be a headache. It's gonna be hard. Pero at the end, when it works, it really works. It's very safe. When it works, you're gonna make sure na your API is gonna be very performant. So why Rust? Of course, I've already mentioned the memory safety. And then it also promises low-level performance with high-level features. What does that mean? It promises an experience that JavaScript provides, but it also promises the performance of low-level languages like C and C++. So, of course, you're going to be very skeptical. How is that possible? No? How can you achieve memory safety with high-level features and low-level performance? Well, it's all possible in Rust. So when I started with Rust, I was exploring the web ecosystem. It's very interesting that they have this. This logo is for the cargo tool in Rust. What is it? Diba? Is anybody familiar with NPM? NPM? The node package manager, diba? It's very convenient. When you want a dependency, you're just gonna type in the type in the CLI, diba? npm install whatever package you want. If you want a package that verifies if a number is even or not, there's gonna be a package for it in JavaScript. So I was surprised, low-level language, but it has a package manager like Cargo. So I've experimented with it, and it's very, very convenient. Honestly, this is one of the things that I really like about developing in the web using the Rust programming language. Why? Because you have your dependencies. Me, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, diba? It's very time consuming, and if the client wants more from you with less time, of course you're gonna install some dependencies. So it's very convenient. You're just gonna define all of your packages in one file, and it's gonna install them for you, and you can use it on your entire project. And then next one is Tokyo. Sir Basti over here has already discussed Tokyo. It's an async runtime, very, very similar to JavaScript as well. So migrating from JavaScript to Rust is very easy, you know. So I hope it's very promising, and I hope it's very encouraging for you JavaScript developers. For the last one, Axum. Axum is a web framework for developing backend APIs. So it's kind of like the same as Nest.js, is Express.js. If you have experience developing with that, so it's kind of like the same thing as well. It's very, very clean as well. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's create a web API. So, diba, some of you here have already experienced creating a web API. So there's there's steps, diba, in creating a web API. First, you have to install, or if there's a boilerplate, you can just run a simple CLI command, and it's gonna run a script, and then it will set everything up for you so that it's plug and play, diba? So let's create here cargo new Rust API. So what does this mean? It's basically npm init. If you've ever experienced npm init, it's sort of like the same thing. It's gonna provide you with a package JSON in JavaScript, and in Rust, it's gonna give you cargo.toml. It's very similar to package.json. You just define all of your packages there, and it's gonna install it for you. So you cd to the Rust API, you navigate to it, and then, of course, after after defining all of your packages and installing it, you use them. So as you can see here, diba? If you've ever experienced JavaScript development, it's very similar as importing your packages. It's very convenient. So, okay, let's create a handler function. So our web API here is gonna return a very simple string, an HTTP request, and then it's gonna return hello world. So let's create a function, diba? It's an async function of hello world. It doesn't need to be async, but let's just imagine that there's processes here that requires time, and then it's gonna return a string. And then this is a very simple example of starting a web server in Axum. So first, you have your main function, and then you're gonna create your routes over there. So that is your entry point. So if you can see here, the slash over there, if you're gonna navigate to the localhost 3000 or whatever domain you pointed to, it's going to get the hello world handler function here. Okay, so does anybody know, like, just give me 4 examples of the HTTP requests na types. Does anybody know? Sige, get. One more. Put. Sige, one more. Post. Sige, one more. Ano ba? Delete. Okay, one more. Let's make it 5. Patch. Wow, so amazing. So everybody here already knows that naman day. So that's very, very encouraging for me. So let's create our socket address over here. This function basically does that. And then we're gonna create a listener at the Tokyo runtime. And then we start the Axum server. It's just that simple. It's only a couple of lines. And this is only this is very simple, no? And then when we cargo run, it's the same thing as npm start or npm run dev. When we run it, it's gonna create a server for you so that you can test your endpoints on it. So let's let's test it, diba? So for the localhost 3000, diba, yung get function, and then as you can see here, it's not really readable, no? But it returns the hello world string that we have defined in the function. It's very simple. And you're also gonna be wondering, no? If you're gonna create a very big application, what are the routes gonna look like? If you've ever experienced Laravel, if you've ever experienced other frameworks, it's gonna look exactly the same like this. Diba? You're gonna define all of your routes into one function, and then you can use that in your server. Next. So one thing that is always repeating, no? One word that is always repeating on the Rust development and the Rust programming language is safety. Well, how does it achieve that? Because it forces you to handle edge cases at compile time. Now, what does that mean? Diba I've told you that Rust always complains. It's very hard to develop, but once you're done, it's gonna handle all of the edge cases. Sir Christian termed it as exhaustive. So if you're gonna define an enum, if you're gonna use that enum, you have to exhaust all of the values on it. Okay, let's compare it to JavaScript. So you have this function get greeting. It's gonna return hello user.name .to uppercase. Now I have a question. Is this memory safe or will this introduce any runtime errors? It's yes, why? Oh wow, that's amazing. Yes, if name is undefined. So if name is undefined, it's gonna return undefined. It's gonna return an error. Diba? A runtime error. That's very bad. I hate runtime errors, diba? Because it's gonna introduce those errors to your clients. That's very bad. Now let's convert that to Rust. So you have a user over here, and then it's an optional string. What does that mean? The string can be undefined or not. It's not really undefined in Rust, pero let's just use that terminology because we're comparing it to JavaScript. So you have this get greeting over here, and diba, you can see the two uppercase is red. Why? Because the type is option string. So if it's option string, name is going to have a case where it's going to be undefined or doesn't have any value. So if that's gonna be the case, two uppercase is not gonna compile. It's gonna complain again. Why? Because option string doesn't have a method to uppercase. So essentially, we have to unwrap that, or we're gonna use something called match that basically matches all of the cases of option string. So this is for the Rust code as well. We've converted our code to handle some or none. Some meaning it's gonna have a value, and none, well, of course, none. So it's kind of like a switch case, but you should handle every case, diba? So if user is gonna be there, it's gonna return to the name, and then if none, call back test. But one thing, yeah, who is using Rust, diba? It's always promises low-level performance with high-level experience features. But who is actually using Rust? Why is it so popular? These are some of the companies that are actually slowly migrating to Rust or exclusively using Rust. First of all, let's start with Firefox. Actually, Firefox here is the Rust programming language originates from Rust. It's kind of it was a personal project from one of their employees, and then Firefox said, "Okay, we're gonna fund you. and then we're gonna make it into this very big project. Then the next, AWS Firecracker for their micro VMs, and also Discord. Now, Discord, it's very interesting because they were already using a very performant language called Go. And then they migrated from Go to Rust. Okay, why is that? No? Why did they migrate from Go to Rust? It's because Go has a garbage collector. And then when you're handling millions and millions of requests, it's gonna cause some performance issues. Now Rust doesn't have a garbage collector. It handles memory safety compile time. So because of that, when they migrated to Rust, everything was more performant, more efficient. And then the next one, TurboPack. If you're familiar with Webpack, it's kind of like the same thing, but it uses Rust. Now they have this crazy numbers on their website. You can check. If you check their website, the TurboPack, it had like 1,000 times more performant than Webpack, which was using JavaScript. Now they're using Rust-based tooling for JavaScript, and it's very fast. I also experienced it myself. TurboPack is very, very fast. Now, of course, Solana. If you're very familiar with blockchain engineering, Solana uses exclusively Rust. Well, not really exclusively, but their very low-level functions use Rust. Now, next is Cloudflare. Cloudflare, who knows Cloudflare here, diba? When you enter a website, it's gonna show you Cloudflare, 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 but what does it actually mean? Or what do they actually do? Well, Cloudflare, it enables users to have DDoS protection on their website. So all those malicious hackers, they're gonna have Cloudflare. You can ensure that there's gonna be some DDoS protection. I've also experienced it myself. I've made a website and then there was like these Russian hackers trying to attack it because it was really popular. All I did was just install Cloudflare. Everything was gone. So Cloudflare was using Rust entirely for the DDoS detection. All of these companies and others who are migrating to Rust should be evidence for us also to learn Rust. If you wanna work in large companies, if you wanna work with these companies, or if you're very passionate about programming and you're very interested in how Rust works, I encourage you to study. It's very simple. You can read their documentation. I haven't finished it yet, but it's slow, diba? Pero eventually we'll get there. It'll get very complicated in the end. As Sir Christian also said, it's not really, the steep curve is not that, it's that, diba? Along the way, you're gonna discover some concepts that's really hard to wrap your mind around. But once you get used to it, no, it's very worth it. Okay, so that's all for me. Thank you, everyone.